we are.
Here we are. So we've been going to do this for a while.
Yep. Yes, we have.
And my intention when we talked about doing this was we have had lots and lots of conversations. Maybe we should just say that I'm an individual couple and family therapist.
Mm-hmm.
My name is Suzanne, and...
Yeah, my name's Travis. This is also my mom. And my mom is a P.H.D, which is important to say, right?
Mm-hmm.
P.H.D, marriage and family therapist. And I am a Chinese medicine practitioner. I do acupuncture, Chinese herbal medicine, and we've had discussions about health and not just physical health, but the health of a person in community, and the concepts that both of our disciplines run through and think about in order to try and help people to feel better. And so we've had many talks about that over the years, and we wanted to try recording it. I think you have specific intentions for what
I have some questions.
Yeah, you have specific intentions for what you want this to be. And I have some questions for you as well.
Good.
So we'll I think maybe you'll go first, and then I'll kind of...
Okay.
I'll do mine later. And
Okay.
We also have some tea here. This is a Taiwanese oolong. And actually we only have one cup, which is going to be difficult to work, but...
do you want to go get another cup and we'll just cut it out?
Yeah, why don't we do that?
It'll steep.
It'll steep, and I'll be right back. All right. All right. Cheers.
Cheers.
Now the water's cooled down quite a bit. We probably need to heat it back up. Oh well, let's get started.
Okay. One of the things that I've talked about when I've been trying to discuss with people how I see mental health and health moving forward is talking about incorporating some energy work or energy concepts into my treatment. So when we have talked, you have enlightened me about the idea when we speak of, when like sort of Western practitioners talk about energy, this idea, and I realize I'm doing it too, that I think about energy in a very Western frame of mind.
Sure.
And by that I mean, I think of energy as just something, another thing that's flowing through the system.
Right.
When I have defined energy, I have used terms like source energy, or I'm trying to think what I have right now. I'm blanking, like in terms of like what I have said in terms of other words that don't include energy in it. But that just goes, I always talk about how we don't have a very good definition of what is energy really. What do we mean by that?
Sure.
So I've talked to you about it when we talk, like when I think of acupuncture as a Western person, I'm still thinking, oh, there's these pathways and you intervene. There's a problem, there's a symptom and you intervene. Oh, here's the problem. Here's where you fix it.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that that's not how Eastern and culture and Chinese medicine think about it. So not that Western medicine doesn't think about things systemically, but I think I know that when I'm listening to you talk about it, that I'm not thinking about it the same way. And I know that when you started Chinese medicine and learning about it, you had to learn this other way of thinking.
Yeah, sure.
So maybe we just start out with the idea of, would you say that chi is energy, or is energy chi? Like,
Yeah.
we've had this conversation many times. So
Yeah.
but I think other people might be interested to hear this conversation, at least
sure.
from my perspective, because I have a way of thinking about it myself that's pretty, I would say, eclectic after all the words that I've been using. But I think you have a very different, maybe not totally different, but another way of thinking about it. I wanted you to explain it.
Sure. So, so the way that we typically translate the word qi in Chinese is into English is energy, and that definition works in some cases pretty well, I think, but in other cases doesn't work so well. And the reason for that, I think, is because when people try to translate terms, they try to make, like, it's just human nature to try and make something mean something that we already know. So, like, chi just means energy. Well, it's like an energy, like flowing through things.
So I
or
think
like
the
a
way
life
that
force energy is another
universal life force energy, I think, is the way that I've
Universal life
described
force
it
energy.
to other people.
I believe the translation of that is originally is a translation of Reiki. I think that was
That's the Reiki translation.
That's the way people translated Reiki at first, and that the there's a gentleman who was I believe was a French banker, actually, in the 20th century, who was the first person to translate qi into the word energy into English, and he also translated the words Jingluo into meridians. Now, there's a lot of people today who think that that was a bad idea because that's not very accurate in a lot of cases. So the translation of qi into energy works better for qigong than it does for acupuncture.
Okay.
And it works better for qigong than it does for feng shui. Or tea, it actually works pretty well for. Like the chi of this tea, the energy of this tea. That's okay. Like we've talked about this. You drink tea and you feel, it feels like the tea is going. There's
the energy's
up,
moving up.
So opening up my head, like that's fine. That translation is pretty close, but qi in general, the term means something different depending on the context that it's used. That's the first thing I would say that people get confused with, is that, like, if you say to somebody who's practicing Tai Chi, sink the Chi, that is very different than putting an acupuncture needle in somebody and trying to manipulate the Chi. Those are very different things. And it's understandable that people get confused by that, because unless you're around it long enough, you don't see how those two things are different. So when you say sink the chi in Taiji, what you're actually referring to is more like the physical structures of the body. So you're in a particular position, and you're trying to make your mass, which is different than your weight, but similar to the weight of your body. Mass includes some concept of the mind as well. You're trying to get your mass to sink through the tissues of the body and go down to the earth, basically, is what you're trying to do. And that's a physical, tangible sensation. It feels like, it feels kind of like when you're practicing, it feels like you're squeezing toothpaste through a tube or something. It feels like this kind of like that kind of process.